My name is Stephanie Mitchell, and at 32, I've learned that success is sometimes best kept quiet at family gatherings. When my sister Allison announced her engagement to Bradley Thompson, I smiled and celebrated despite my reservations about his arrogance. If only I had known how he truly saw me as just the help. But life has a way of serving justice when you least expect it, especially at a dinner that would change everything. Before I share what happened that night, where are you watching from? Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever been underestimated. I promise this story of sweet revenge will be worth it. Growing up, Allison and I shared more than just our parents and our home. We shared a complicated sisterly bond that was equal parts love and rivalry. Despite being only 2 years apart, we might as well have been from different planets. I was the studious one with my nose always buried in a book, while Allison was the social butterfly who could charm anyone within minutes of meeting them. Our modest middle-class upbringing in suburban Boston meant we shared a bedroom until I left for college. Those close quarters created an intimacy between us, but also highlighted our differences. Every night as I studied under a desk lamp, Allison would be on her bed, phone cradled between shoulder and ear, giggling with friends about weekend plans. Stephanie has the brains, but Allison has the people skills, our mother would often say at family gatherings, as if these attributes were mutually exclusive. Dad would nod in agreement, adding, "That's why Allison will marry well, while Stephanie will support herself." They didn't mean it unkindly, but their words carved a path we both unconsciously followed. When I brought home straight A's, there would be a quick, "good job," before conversation turned to Allison's latest social triumph, being elected homecoming queen or chosen to give a speech at graduation because of her popularity, not her grades. I learned to downplay my achievements, keeping my academic scholarships and awards quiet to avoid seeming like I was competing for attention. After high school, I worked 3 jobs to supplement my scholarships at Boston University's business school. Those years were a blur of coffee shop morning shifts, library study sessions between classes, and nighttime waitressing at an upscale restaurant where I first observed the business executives I aspired to become. While Allison attended community college and thrived in her expanding social circles, I pushed myself through undergraduate and then an MBA program, graduating with honors but substantial debt. My career began at a mid-sized financial services firm, where I quickly established myself as someone who could identify inefficiencies and implement solutions that improved the bottom line. As I climbed the corporate ladder, from analyst to manager to director and eventually to vice president, I kept my successes modest around my family. At holiday dinners, when asked about work, I'd simply say, "It's going well," before turning the conversation to others. Allison, meanwhile, bounced between jobs in retail and event planning, her natural charisma making her well-liked, but her lack of focus preventing career advancement. I never judged her choices. We were simply different people with different strengths. I secretly helped her financially sometimes, but never mentioned it, knowing her pride would be hurt. 6 months ago, Allison called me, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Steph, I've met someone amazing. His name is Bradley Thompson, and he works in finance like you, but he's a vice president at Thompson Financial Services." I soon learned that they had met at a charity gala where Allison was working as an event coordinator. Bradley had apparently been immediately smitten with her beauty and vivacious personality. Within weeks, they were inseparable. When I first met Bradley at a dinner Allison arranged, I was struck by his conventionally handsome features and designer clothes. He had the polished look of someone who came from money and knew it. His charisma filled the room as he shared stories about his boarding school days and his Yale education. But I also noticed how he subtly spoke over me when I mentioned my own alma mater, and how his eyes glazed over when conversation turned to anything outside his immediate interests. "Your sister is quite different from you," he commented when Allison stepped away to the restroom. "She has such natural grace in social settings." The compliment to my sister carried an implicit criticism of me that I chose to ignore. Throughout that dinner, I observed how Bradley controlled the conversation, ordered for Allison without consulting her preferences, and name-dropped constantly. Red flags waved frantically in my mind, but Allison seemed happier than I'd seen her in years, her eyes shining whenever she looked at him. "What do you think?" she asked eagerly as we hugged goodbye that night. "He seems very successful," I replied diplomatically. "Are you happy?" Deliriously, she gushed. "And his family practically owns half of Boston's financial district. Can you imagine me in that world?" I could, actually, and it worried me. But I smiled and said, "As long as he treats you well, that's what matters." 3 months into their relationship, Allison called me at midnight, her voice trembling with excitement. He proposed. Bradley proposed tonight at Le Bernardin. The ring is 4 carats, Steph, 4 carats. We're thinking a June wedding. And I need you to help me plan everything. You're so good with details and organization. I swallowed my concerns and congratulated her with all the enthusiasm I could muster. "I'd be honored to help," I said, making a mental note to watch Bradley more carefully in the coming months. If he truly made my sister happy, I would support her completely. But at the first sign that he was mistreating her, all bets would be off. Oh, and Bradley suggested we meet next Saturday to start planning. He knows this amazing wedding planner who works with all the Boston elite. Just wait until you see the venues he's considering, only the very best for a Thompson wedding. As I hung up, I couldn't shake the feeling that this whirlwind romance was heading for stormy weather. But for now, I would be the supportive sister Allison needed me to be, even if that meant dealing with her increasingly insufferable fiancé. The following Saturday arrived with unusually warm spring sunshine, a stark contrast to the cold reception I would receive. Allison had texted me the address of Maison Laurent, one of Boston's most exclusive French restaurants, for our first wedding planning meeting. I arrived 15 minutes early, dressed in a conservative navy blazer and pencil skirt, my standard business attire. "Ms. Mitchell." The maitre d' greeted me at the entrance. "The rest of your party has already arrived. Please follow me." I was surprised that Bradley and Allison had beaten me there, given my early arrival. As I approached the private dining area, I could hear Bradley's booming laugh and the tinkling of champagne glasses. Seated at the table were Allison, Bradley, and an impeccably dressed woman with a leather portfolio who I assumed was the wedding planner. They already had champagne and appeared to be celebrating. "Stephanie." Allison jumped up to hug me. "Isn't this place amazing?" "Bradley comes here all the time for business lunches." Bradley barely looked up from his phone as he offered a distracted, "Hello, Stephanie." No offer of a handshake, no champagne poured for me. "This is Vivian Montclair," Allison introduced the elegant woman. "She's planned weddings for actual Kennedys." Vivian extended her hand with a practiced smile. "Pleasure to meet you." Allison mentioned you'll be helping with some of the smaller details. I shook her hand firmly. "I'm looking forward to supporting my sister however I can." As I took my seat, Bradley continued scrolling through his phone. When the waiter approached to take my drink order, Bradley interjected before I could speak. "She'll just have water. We need to keep someone clear-headed for taking notes," he said with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. Allison laughed nervously. "Oh, Steph doesn't mind. She's always the responsible one." I smiled tightly, but said nothing, not wanting to create tension at our first meeting. Vivian opened her portfolio. "Now, as I was saying before Stephanie arrived, the Fairmont Copley Plaza has an opening for the second Saturday in June. It's the perfect venue for the 400 guests on your preliminary list." "400? I couldn't help but interject. "Allison, I thought you always wanted a more intimate wedding." Bradley finally put his phone down. "The Thompsons have social obligations. My father's business associates alone account for 100 invitations. Plus, Bradley's mother says anything less would look like we're cutting corners," Allison added, though I noticed she wouldn't meet my eyes. For the next hour, I watched as Bradley dominated every decision, from the 7-course menu to the selection of Calacatta marble for the custom dance floor. Each time I offered a suggestion, he would either talk over me or dismiss the idea outright. When I mentioned that Allison had always loved peonies for flowers, Bradley scoffed. "Peonies? No. Vivian, we discussed orchids imported from Thailand. The budget is unlimited, as I mentioned." Vivian nodded. making a note without acknowledging my input. As the meeting progressed, I tried to catch Allison's eye, but she seemed entranced by the extravagant plans unfolding. This wasn't the wedding she had described to me over late-night ice cream sessions in our youth. She had always wanted something meaningful and personal, not this exercise in excess and showing off. The breaking point came when the discussion turned to the bridal party. Allison mentioned you'll be the maid of honor, Vivian said to me. We'll need your measurements for the custom Vera Wang. Before I could respond, Bradley interrupted again. Actually, we've been discussing that. My cousin Fiona really should have that honor given the family connections. But Stephanie, we'd love your help coordinating things. Like keeping track of RSVPs, arranging transportation for out-of-town guests, that sort of thing. Allison looked startled. Bradley, we never discussed, darling, we talked about the importance of making the right social connections for our future, he said, patting her hand condescendingly. Stephanie understands. She's happy to be the help, aren't you, Stephanie? The table fell silent. Even Vivian looked uncomfortable. The help? I repeated, my voice dangerously calm. Bradley waved his hand dismissively. You know what I mean. You're so good with organization and details. Fiona couldn't manage a grocery list, but she's a Thompson. It's just how these things work. I looked at Allison, waiting for her to defend me, to remind Bradley that I was her only sister. Brad's just stressed from work, she finally said weakly. But maybe it would be easier if you handled the behind-the-scenes stuff, Steph. You're so good at that. I felt as though I'd been slapped. Taking a deep breath, I placed my napkin on the table and stood up. I think I've heard enough for today. Allison, call me when you want to talk, just as sisters. As I walked away, I heard Bradley mutter, so sensitive. This is why people from your background struggle in higher circles, Allison. They don't understand how things work. That evening, Allison called me repeatedly, but I let the calls go to voicemail. I needed time to process what had happened and decide how to support my sister without enabling Bradley's disrespect. The following Monday, I was returning from a business lunch when my assistant informed me that the CEO of Meridian Enterprises had called personally and requested I contact him immediately. Meridian was one of the largest financial services companies on the East Coast and a major competitor to Thompson Financial, where Bradley worked. I had met their board chairman, Jonathan Reynolds, at an industry conference where I had presented on innovative risk management strategies. Curious and slightly concerned, I returned the call immediately. Stephanie, thank you for getting back to me so quickly. Jonathan's warm voice came through the line. I'll get straight to the point. Our CEO is retiring, and after seeing your work and hearing your presentation at the conference, the board unanimously agrees that you're exactly who we need to take Meridian into the future. We'd like to offer you the position. I nearly dropped the phone. CEO of Meridian Enterprises? It was the opportunity of a lifetime, one I had worked toward my entire career, but hadn't expected for at least another decade. As Jonathan outlined the generous compensation package and the board's strategic vision, one detail caught my attention. They wanted to keep the announcement confidential until their annual investor meeting, which was 6 weeks away. After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. Not only had I just been offered a dream position, but it was at the very company that competed directly with Bradley's firm. The same Bradley who had just dismissed me as the help. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of irony after all. The morning after Jonathan's call, I found myself in Meridian's sleek headquarters, signing a confidentiality agreement before meeting with the board of directors. The top-floor conference room offered panoramic views of Boston Harbor, but I was too focused on the 12 people seated around the table to appreciate the scenery. Ms. Mitchell, your reputation precedes you, said Eleanor Banks, the silver-haired chairwoman of the board. Your work implementing blockchain technology at your current firm increased their security capabilities while reducing costs by 22%. Impressive. Not to mention the award-winning risk assessment protocol you developed during the financial crisis, added another board member. It's now being taught at Harvard Business School. I thanked them but stayed humble. I've been fortunate to work with excellent teams. And that's precisely why we want you, Jonathan said. Your technical knowledge is exceptional, but your leadership style, collaborative yet decisive, is what Meridian needs now. The meeting progressed with discussions about my vision for the company. They listened intently as I outlined potential strategies for expanding Meridian's digital offerings while maintaining their traditional strengths in wealth management. We've been losing ground to more aggressive firms like Thomson Financial, Jonathan admitted. They've been poaching our clients with promises of higher returns, but their risk management is questionable at best. I kept my face neutral at the mention of Bradley's company, though internally I noted the irony. I believe we can compete effectively without compromising our integrity, I replied. Sustainable growth beats flashy short-term gains every time. By meeting's end, I had officially accepted the position. The contract included a substantial base salary, performance bonuses, stock options, and a corner office with that same magnificent harbor view. The board requested my discretion until the official announcement at their investor meeting in 6 weeks. We want to make a splash, Jonathan explained. And giving our competitors time to react before we unveil our new strategy isn't prudent. I agreed completely, signed the contract, and scheduled a series of confidential preparation meetings to ease my transition. As I left Meridian's building, I felt a mixture of exhilaration and apprehension. This was my moment, the culmination of years of hard work and sacrifice. Yet I couldn't share it with anyone, not even Allison. Speaking of my sister, she had left a dozen messages, each increasingly apologetic about Bradley's behavior. I finally called her back that evening. "Steph, I'm so sorry about Saturday," she gushed immediately. "Bradley didn't mean it the way it sounded." "How exactly should I have interpreted being called the help, Allison?" I asked quietly. "He's just under tremendous pressure at work. Thomson Financial is bidding for this huge client, and he's leading the team. He's barely sleeping." The justifications were exactly what I expected. I sighed, deciding to keep the peace for now. "I understand stress, Ollie. But that doesn't excuse disrespect." I know. He wants to apologize in person. We're having a small engagement party next weekend at his parents' estate in Cambridge. Please come, it would mean everything to me." I hesitated, then relented. "For you, Ollie. Not for him." The following Saturday, I arrived at the Thompson estate, a sprawling colonial mansion with manicured gardens and a view of the Charles River. Valets in crisp uniforms parked guests' cars while servers circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Allison rushed over, radiant in a designer dress I knew she couldn't afford on her event planner salary. "You came. And you look beautiful." I had indeed made an effort, wearing a simple but elegant black cocktail dress with subtle pearl accessories, professional yet appropriate for the occasion. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, hugging her. "It's quite the event for a small gathering." She laughed nervously. Bradley's mother took over the planning. "There are at least 200 people here, mostly Thomson Financial clients and partners." As we moved through the crowd, I noticed several prominent Boston business figures, including a few I knew from industry events. I kept a low profile, not wanting to draw attention to my own business connections. After about an hour of mingling, during which Bradley seemed to be avoiding me, I stepped into a quiet hallway to check my phone. I had received an email from Jonathan regarding our first confidential strategy meeting scheduled for Monday. "There you are." Bradley's voice boomed behind me, making me quickly lock my phone screen. He was slightly flushed, likely from the several drinks I'd seen him consume. "The caterer said one of the servers was hiding back here on her phone. Should have known it was you." I stared at him in disbelief. "Excuse me?" He gestured vaguely at my black dress. "You blend right in with the staff. Actually, since you're here, some of the guests in the garden room need their champagne refreshed." "Bradley," I said evenly, "I'm not a server. I'm your fiancé's sister and a guest at this party." He blinked, then let out a forced laugh. "Just a joke, Stephanie. Lighten up. Everyone knows the Mitchell sisters have different skill sets. Allison got the looks and charm, you got the whatever it is you do." I could smell the expensive scotch on his breath and decided this wasn't the time for confrontation. "I should find Allison." "Before you do," he said, blocking my path slightly, "I wanted to invite you to dinner next Thursday." My boss is in town, and Allison mentioned you work in finance too. Thought you might enjoy meeting someone from the big leagues. His condescending smile made it clear he considered this a generous gesture. How thoughtful, I replied neutrally. Who knows? He continued. Play your cards right, and maybe you could learn something about real business. Might even be able to refer you for something entry-level at Thompson. The audacity nearly made me laugh. Instead, I simply nodded. Thursday dinner. I'll be there. As I walked away, I heard him call after me, dressed professionally. Jonathan Reynolds doesn't suffer fools or poor presentation. I froze momentarily at the mention of Jonathan's name, but didn't turn around. So Bradley's boss was none other than the chairman of Meridian's board, the very man who had just hired me as CEO. The man who would soon be introducing me as Bradley's superior. Sometimes the universe doesn't just have a sense of irony, it has a sense of justice. Over the next few days, while maintaining my current job, I secretly met with Meridian's executive team to prepare for my transition. I reviewed financial statements, strategic plans, and personnel files, absorbing everything about the company that would soon be under my leadership. Meanwhile, Allison had returned to planning her extravagant wedding, seemingly having forgotten Bradley's dismissive treatment of me. When we spoke, it was all about floral arrangements and seating charts, never about how he spoke to me or treated her. As Thursday approached, I felt a mixture of anticipation and ethical concern. I hadn't revealed to anyone, not Jonathan, not Allison, about the connection between Bradley and me. Part of me wondered if I should disclose it to Jonathan before the dinner, but another part recognized that Bradley had created this situation himself through his arrogance and assumptions. In the end, I decided to let events unfold naturally. I wasn't orchestrating some elaborate revenge. I was simply allowing reality to assert itself. If Bradley had bothered to treat me with basic respect or even simple curiosity about my career, he might have avoided the embarrassment that awaited him. The night before the dinner, Allison called, bubbling with excitement. Brad says this dinner is really important. His boss is considering him for a huge promotion. Isn't that amazing? If he gets it, we might upgrade the honeymoon from the Maldives to a private yacht in the Mediterranean. That would be something, I replied noncommittally. I'm sure it will be an interesting evening. Thank you for doing this, Steph. I know you and Brad got off on the wrong foot, but this means a lot to him. He specifically requested you come. I smiled to myself. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Thursday evening arrived with a light spring rain that left Boston glistening under streetlights. I selected my attire carefully, a tailored charcoal suit with subtle burgundy accents, professional yet confident. This wasn't about embarrassing Bradley. It was about carrying myself with the dignity his behavior had lacked. The restaurant Bradley had chosen was Luca's, one of Boston's most exclusive Italian establishments, where reservations typically required months of advance notice unless you had connections. I arrived precisely on time, handed my car to the valet, and approached the maitre d'. Good evening. I'm joining the Thompson party. The man consulted his tablet. Miss Mitchell. The other guests have already arrived. Please follow me. He led me through the dimly lit main dining room, where soft conversations and the gentle clink of fine china created an atmosphere of muted elegance. We continued to a private dining area in the back, separated from the main restaurant by frosted glass doors. As the doors opened, I saw Bradley standing near a window, gesturing animatedly while speaking to an older man whose back was to me. Allison sat at the table, looking beautiful but slightly uncomfortable in a dress that seemed chosen more for Bradley's taste than her own. Your final guest has arrived, sir, the maitre d' announced. Bradley turned, his expression shifting from annoyance at the interruption to a forced smile when he saw me. Stephanie. Right on time. He approached, lowering his voice. Remember what I said, best behavior. Jonathan Reynolds is not only my boss, but also one of the most influential men in Boston finance. Before I could respond, the older man turned around, and I found myself face to face with Jonathan. His momentary surprise quickly transformed into a warm smile of recognition. Stephanie Mitchell, he said, extending his hand. What an unexpected pleasure. Bradley looked between us, confusion evident on his face. You two know each other? Jonathan clasped my hand firmly. Indeed we do. MS. Mitchell delivered a brilliant presentation at the Eastern Finance Conference last fall. Her innovative approach to digital security in financial services was the talk of the event. Bradley forced a laugh. Small world. Stephanie never mentioned meeting you. She's my fiancé's sister, he added, as if that explained my existence. Is that so? Jonathan raised an eyebrow. Well, she's being characteristically modest. Stephanie is one of the brightest minds in our industry. Allison had approached during this exchange, her expression a mixture of confusion and pride. Steph, you never told me you knew Bradley's boss. I smiled gently at my sister. It never came up. The maitre d' invited us to be seated, and Jonathan immediately gestured for me to take the seat beside him, much to Bradley's visible displeasure. As we settled in, Bradley attempted to reclaim control of the situation. Jonathan was just telling me about Meridian's exciting new direction, he said, reaching for his wine glass. Apparently, they've finally found a CEO to replace Harrison after his retirement announcement. Indeed we have, Jonathan replied, his eyes twinkling as he glanced at me. In fact, that's partly why I wanted to have dinner tonight. Bradley leaned forward eagerly. I've heard rumors it might be someone from Thompson Financial. If you're looking at our talent pool, I'd be honored to throw my hat in the ring. Jonathan chuckled. I'm afraid the position has already been filled. We conducted an extensive search and found exactly the right person to lead Meridian into its next chapter. Anyone I might know? Bradley asked, clearly hoping for information he could leverage. Jonathan paused as the server arrived with appetizers. After they departed, he turned to address the table at large. I wasn't planning to make this announcement until our investor meeting next week, but since we're among friends. He raised his glass. I'd like to toast Meridian's new Chief Executive Officer, Stephanie Mitchell, who will be taking the helm effective the 1st of next month. The silence that followed was absolute. Bradley's face drained of color, his wine glass frozen halfway to his lips. Allison's eyes widened to an almost comical degree as she looked at me in shock. I don't understand, Bradley finally managed, his voice strained. It's quite simple, Jonathan replied. After observing Stephanie's remarkable work over the past few years, our board unanimously agreed she has exactly the vision and leadership qualities Meridian needs. We're fortunate she accepted our offer. Bradley set his glass down with enough force that wine sloshed over the rim. But she's just... Just what, Bradley? Jonathan asked, his tone still pleasant, but eyes suddenly sharp. I watched Bradley struggle to recalibrate in real time. His shock morphed into an unconvincing smile as he realized the precarious position he'd put himself in. Just someone I've always recognized has tremendous potential, he finished smoothly. In fact, I was telling Allison just the other day what an asset Stephanie is to any organization fortunate enough to have her. Allison's bewildered expression made it clear this was a blatant lie, but she remained silent. Jonathan turned to me. Stephanie, I hope you don't mind my jumping the gun on our announcement. I simply couldn't resist when the opportunity presented itself. Not at all, I replied calmly, though I had hoped to tell my sister privately first. I reached over to squeeze Allison's hand. Her fingers were cold, but she returned the pressure. This is, wow, Steph, she whispered. CEO of Meridian? That's incredible. Bradley cleared his throat. Absolutely incredible. Allison's always said her big sister was destined for great things. The remainder of the dinner proceeded with excruciating politeness. Bradley attempted to salvage his dignity by claiming insider knowledge of my capabilities, while Jonathan deliberately steered the conversation toward Meridian's future plans that would directly compete with Thompson Financial's strategies. As dessert was served, Bradley excused himself to use the restroom. After he'd gone, Jonathan leaned toward me. I had no idea you were connected to Bradley Thompson, he said quietly. You should have mentioned it. Professionally, we aren't connected, I replied. And my sister's relationship with him didn't seem relevant to my qualifications for the position. Jonathan nodded thoughtfully. Fair enough. Though it does create an interesting dynamic, given that Meridian and Thompson Financial are direct competitors. I assure you I understand the ethical boundaries, I said firmly. My personal relationships won't affect my professional judgment. I never doubted that for a moment, Jonathan replied. When Bradley returned, his composure seemed restored, though a tightness around his eyes betrayed his inner turmoil. As the evening wound down, he insisted on paying the bill despite Jonathan's protests. I insist, Bradley said. It's not every day we celebrate such a surprising career advancement. As we prepared to leave, Bradley pulled me aside while Jonathan was helping Allison with her coat. What the hell was that? He hissed, his genial mask slipping. You deliberately set me up to look like a fool. I did nothing of the sort, I replied calmly. You managed that entirely on your own. You could have warned me you knew Jonathan. Do you have any idea how this makes me look? I told him you were the help, for God's sake. Perhaps that's a lesson in not underestimating people, I suggested. Especially women you consider beneath your notice. His face flushed with anger. This isn't over, Stephanie. You may be hot stuff at Meridian, but you have no idea who you're dealing with. The Thompsons have influence throughout Boston's financial world. Is everything all right? Jonathan's voice broke in as he approached with Allison. Bradley's expression instantly transformed. Absolutely. Just congratulating my future sister-in-law properly. Family is so important to the Thompsons, you know. Indeed, Jonathan replied, though his tone suggested skepticism. Stephanie, may I walk you to your car? There's one more matter I'd like to discuss before tomorrow's meeting. As we stepped outside, leaving Bradley and Allison in the restaurant foyer, Jonathan spoke quietly. I've known Bradley Thompson for 5 years, Stephanie. He's ambitious, but ultimately mediocre, riding on his family name rather than genuine talent. Whatever he just said to you, don't let it unsettle you. I appreciate your concern, but I can handle Bradley, I assured him. I have no doubt of that, Jonathan smiled. That's precisely why you're going to make an exceptional CEO. As Jonathan departed, I waited for Allison and Bradley to emerge from the restaurant. The night had unfolded in ways none of us could have predicted, and I knew the fallout was just beginning. The valet had just returned with my car when Allison and Bradley emerged from the restaurant. Allison hurried toward me while Bradley lingered by the entrance, furiously typing on his phone. Steph, can we talk for a minute? Allison asked, her voice trembling slightly. I'm still processing all of this. Of course, I replied, stepping away from my car. I wanted to tell you about the position, but the board required complete confidentiality until the official announcement. Before Allison could respond, Bradley strode over, his face a mask of forced composure. Ladies, why don't we continue this conversation somewhere more private? The Thompson boat is docked nearby. We could have a nightcap and properly celebrate Stephanie's achievement. Something in his tone made me wary, but Allison was already nodding enthusiastically. That sounds perfect. We haven't shown Steph the boat yet. 20 minutes later, we were aboard Thompson Legacy, a sleek 60-foot yacht docked at Boston Harbor. Despite the luxurious setting, all gleaming wood and soft leather, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Bradley poured 3 glasses of scotch at the boat's small bar, handing them to Allison and me before raising his in a mock toast. To Stephanie, the dark horse no one saw coming. I accepted the glass but didn't drink. Thank you for the sentiment, insincere as it may be. Allison looked between us nervously. Can we just have a nice family moment? This is huge news, Steph. I'm so proud of you. Bradley scoffed, abandoning all pretense now that we were away from Jonathan. Family moment? Your sister deliberately humiliated me in front of my boss, Allison. She knew exactly what she was doing. That's not true, I countered calmly. I accepted a position I'm qualified for. The fact that Jonathan happens to be your boss is coincidental. Coincidental? Bradley's voice rose. You expect me to believe that? You've been plotting this from the beginning, worming your way into Meridian to undermine me. Allison placed a hand on his arm. Brad, that doesn't make sense. How would Steph even know Jonathan was considering her for CEO before tonight? He shook her off. Don't be naive, Allison. Your sister has always been jealous of you of us. She couldn't stand that you found someone successful while she's been married to her job. I set my untouched drink down. Bradley, I understand you're embarrassed about how tonight unfolded. But your accusations are both unfounded and unfair. Unfair? He laughed bitterly, moving to the far end of the cabin. I'll tell you what's unfair. People like you thinking you deserve a place at the table with families like mine. People like me? I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet. Yes, people like you and your sister, he continued, gesturing dismissively. From your background. The right schools, the right connections, these things matter in our world, Stephanie. You can play CEO for now, but you'll never truly belong. Allison gasped. Bradley, what are you saying? He turned to her, his expression softening artificially. Darling, I'm just being honest. You're different, you have a natural grace that transcends your origins. But your family, they'll never fit into the circles we move in. I watched my sister's face as the implications of his words sank in. The hurt in her eyes was quickly replaced by something I hadn't seen in years, the fierce determination that we'd both inherited from our mother. Our origins? Allison repeated slowly. You mean our middle-class upbringing? Our public school education? Our parents who worked honest jobs their whole lives? Bradley seemed to realize he'd gone too far. That's not what I meant, Allison. Your family is charming. But there are realities to the world we'll be living in. The world we'll be living in, she echoed. And what world is that exactly? One where you dismiss my sister as the help? Where you expect me to be ashamed of where I come from? You're twisting my words, Bradley protested, but the damage was done. I moved to stand beside my sister. Allison, I think Bradley has made his views quite clear. Crystal clear, she agreed, her voice steady despite the tears welling in her eyes. She twisted the enormous engagement ring off her finger and placed it on the polished bar. I believe this belongs to you. Bradley stared at the ring in disbelief. You can't be serious. You're throwing away everything we have because of one misunderstanding. This isn't a misunderstanding, Allison replied. It's clarity. I've been ignoring the warning signs for months. How you talk down to waitstaff, how you dismiss anyone you consider beneath you, how you've been slowly trying to separate me from my family. Allison, be reasonable, Bradley pleaded, his tone shifting to one I recognized as manipulation. Think about what you're giving up. The lifestyle, the connections, the security. What about respect? She countered. What about being valued for who I am, not how I look on your arm or how well I can be molded to fit your world? I remained silent, allowing my sister to find her voice, the strong, clear voice I'd always known was there beneath her desire to please others. Bradley's expression hardened. This is your influence, he said, pointing at me. You've never wanted Allison to be happy. On the contrary, I replied quietly. Her happiness is all I've ever wanted. Which is why I've bitten my tongue despite watching you undermine her confidence and dismiss her opinions for months. I don't have to listen to this, Bradley snapped. Especially not from someone who only got her position through some diversity initiative or affirmative action program. Allison stepped forward, her eyes flashing. Enough. My sister earned everything she has through hard work and brilliance. Something you wouldn't recognize because you've had everything handed to you your entire life. Bradley's face contorted with anger. You know nothing about my life or what I've earned. I know that in the 6 months we've been together, you've never once asked about my dreams or valued my opinions, Allison said, her voice breaking slightly. I know that you see me as an accessory, not a partner. And I know I deserve better. From the dock, we heard a car door slam and footsteps approaching the boat. A moment later, Jonathan Reynolds appeared at the cabin entrance, looking concerned. I apologize for the intrusion, he said. I left my briefcase in Stephanie's car and saw you all head this way. His eyes took in the scene, Allison's tears, Bradley's anger, the abandoned engagement ring on the bar. Bradley immediately attempted to compose himself. Jonathan, just a little family disagreement. Nothing to concern yourself with. Jonathan's gaze moved to Allison, then to me. Is everything all right, ladies? Actually, no, Allison answered before I could speak. But it will be. I was just leaving. She turned to me. Steph, Would you mind giving me a ride? Of course, I replied, placing a supportive arm around her shoulders. As we moved toward the exit, Bradley called after us. Allison, don't do this. Think about what you're throwing away. My sister paused, but didn't turn around. I'm not throwing anything away, Bradley. I'm choosing myself. Jonathan stepped aside to let us pass, then addressed Bradley in a tone that was professional yet cold. I think we should reschedule our strategy meeting tomorrow, Mr. Thompson. Take some time to reflect. As we walked down the dock toward the parking area, Allison finally let her tears fall freely. I held her close, feeling her body shake with suppressed sobs. I'm so sorry, Ollie, I whispered. I never wanted this to happen. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. Don't apologize. You didn't cause this. You just happened to be the catalyst that revealed who he really is. She attempted a watery smile. And anyway, one of us should have a happy ending tonight. CEO of Meridian, Steph. I can't believe it. As we reached my car, I could see Jonathan speaking intensely to Bradley on the deck of the yacht. Whatever was being said, Bradley's face had lost all color. Come on, I said gently to Allison. Let's go home. The drive from Boston Harbor to my downtown apartment was mostly silent. Allison stared out the passenger window, occasionally wiping away tears while I focused on navigating the late-night traffic, giving her the space she needed. When we arrived, I led her inside and went through the comforting motions of making tea, something our mother had always done during difficult times. The familiar ritual seemed to soothe Allison, who curled up on my couch wrapped in the oversized throw blanket she'd given me last Christmas. I can't believe I was so blind, she finally said, accepting the steaming mug of chamomile I offered. All the signs were there. I settled beside her. Don't be hard on yourself. Bradley is charming and manipulative, a dangerous combination. But you saw through him immediately, she sighed. I should have trusted your judgment. It's different when you're in love, I replied gently. Emotion clouds perception. That's human, not a failure. She took a sip of tea, then looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Can I ask you something? Anything. Did you really not know Jonathan Reynolds was Bradley's boss when you took the job? I shook my head. I knew Jonathan was chairman at Meridian, but I had no idea of his connection to Bradley until that dinner invitation. Boston's financial world is surprisingly small, but not that small. She nodded, accepting this. And the CEO position. Steph, that's incredible. Why didn't you ever tell me you were operating at that level? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? I knew you were successful, but CEO of a major financial firm? That's big leagues. You always downplayed your career around the family. I considered her words carefully. I suppose I did. It just seemed easier that way. Easier than what? Easier than. I hesitated, then decided honesty was what we both needed. Easier than dealing with the comparisons. Mom and Dad always made such a fuss about your social achievements while treating my academic and professional ones as expected. After a while, it just became habit to minimize my successes. Allison's eyes widened. You thought I would be jealous? Steph, I've always been in awe of you. Your focus, your intelligence, your quiet confidence. Do you know how intimidating that was growing up as your little sister? Now it was my turn to be surprised. Intimidating? But you were always the golden child, beautiful, popular, effortlessly charming. Everything came so easily to you. She laughed, the sound halfway between amusement and disbelief. Nothing came easily except making friends. I struggled through school while watching you ace every test without seeming to try. I dated losers while you built this amazing career. Even my engagement to Bradley was partly because I thought finally I had achieved something impressive. Oh, Ollie. I reached for her hand. I had no idea you felt that way. I've spent years envying your natural social grace and ability to connect with people. Business skills can be learned, but what you have is innate. We sat in silence for a moment, each processing the other's perspective. We're a pair, aren't we? Allison finally said, both envying what the other has instead of recognizing our own strengths. A very Mitchell family trait, I agreed with a small smile. Dad's still bitter that Uncle Joe has a bigger boat, even though Dad's the one with the vacation home. That drew a genuine laugh from Allison. Remember how Mom redecorated the entire living room after Aunt Sarah updated her kitchen? Competitive to the core, those two. Our laughter faded into comfortable silence until Allison spoke again, her voice smaller. What am I going to do now, Steph? I quit my job to plan the wedding. I moved most of my things to Bradley's condo. I have to start all over. Not all over, I corrected her. You're still you, still talented, resilient, and now wiser. And you're definitely not alone. The wedding deposits alone will take me months to pay back if I can even get refunds. Don't worry about that right now, I assured her. You can stay here as long as you need, and we'll sort everything else out together. She nodded gratefully, then hesitated. There's something else. Something Bradley said tonight that keeps echoing in my head. What's that? He accused you of being jealous of us. Is there any truth to that? Have you been lonely, Steph? The question pierced deeper than I expected. I've been focused on my career, not lonely, I replied automatically, then reconsidered. But yes, sometimes I wonder what I've sacrificed for professional success. Watching you fall in love, plan a future with someone, it did make me question my choices occasionally. But you don't regret them? I thought about the journey that had led me to this moment, the late nights, the sacrifices, the satisfaction of building something meaningful. No, I don't regret them. My path is different from yours, but it's still valid. And now as CEO, I'll have the chance to create the kind of workplace culture I've always believed in, one that values both excellence and humanity. Allison smiled genuinely for the first time that night. You're going to be amazing, Steph. I'm so proud of you. She yawned, the emotional exhaustion of the evening finally catching up to her. Time for sleep, I suggested, standing and collecting our mugs. Tomorrow's soon enough to figure out next steps. Tomorrow, she agreed, her eyes already drifting closed. And Steph? Thank you. Not just for tonight, but for always being there, even when I didn't realize I needed you. Over the following days, Allison moved her belongings from Bradley's condo while he was at work, leaving her key and a brief note. He sent dozens of texts and left multiple voicemails, cycling between apologies, accusations, and attempts to make her jealous. She didn't respond to any of them. Meanwhile, I began my transition to Meridian, wrapping up projects at my current firm while secretly meeting with Meridian's executive team to prepare for my new role. Jonathan kept me updated on the fallout at Thompson Financial. Bradley had been removed from several key accounts after clients expressed concerns about his judgment. Not directly because of your sister, of course, Jonathan explained during one of our meetings. But the incident prompted a closer look at some of his risk assessments, which weren't holding up to scrutiny. 2 weeks after the disastrous dinner, Allison received a lavish flower arrangement at my apartment. The card read simply, "I was wrong. Please call me." She placed the flowers on our elderly neighbor's doorstep with a kind note, then blocked Bradley's number on her phone. That same evening, as we shared takeout Chinese food at my dining table, Allison surprised me with an announcement. I've been thinking about what to do next, she said, expertly wielding her chopsticks. I don't want to go back to event planning for other people. What are you considering instead? I asked. I want to start my own business, she replied, a spark of excitement in her eyes. A boutique event management firm specializing in corporate functions and charity galas. I've made so many connections in that world, and I understand what works and what doesn't. I nodded encouragingly. You'd be excellent at that. Your natural people skills combined with your experience, it's perfect. I was hoping you might help me with the business plan, she added hesitantly. I know you're busy with the new position, but I'd be honored, I interrupted. That's what sisters are for. The following weekend, I helped Allison outline her business concept, drawing on my experience to help her develop financial projections and marketing strategies. For the first time in our adult lives, we were truly collaborating, each contributing our distinct strengths toward a common goal. As Meridian's official announcement of my appointment approached, I received an unexpected call from our parents. Stephanie, is it true? My father asked without preamble. Your mother heard from Aunt Linda, who heard from her neighbor who works at Meridian, that you're becoming their CEO. I smiled at the familiar family grapevine. Yes, Dad, it's true. The announcement goes public tomorrow. There was a pause then. Why didn't you tell us something this important? I was under a confidentiality agreement until the official announcement, I explained. And to be honest, I wasn't sure how to bring it up. Not sure how to tell your own parents that you've reached the pinnacle of your field. He sounded genuinely perplexed. It's just that my career achievements haven't always seemed to interest you and Mom as much as other things. Another pause, longer this time. Stephanie Mitchell, that is simply not true. We've always been proud of you. You have a funny way of showing it sometimes, I replied, trying to keep my tone light. Well, we're showing it now, my mother chimed in, apparently on an extension. We're hosting a celebration dinner this Sunday, and we won't take no for an answer. Allison's already agreed to come. I felt a warmth spread through me. Then I'll be there too. That Sunday dinner proved to be a turning point. My parents' home was decorated with congratulatory banners, and they'd invited our extended family to celebrate. For the first time, I found myself center stage at a family gathering, with my father proudly recounting my career achievements, many of which I was surprised he even knew about. I've kept every newspaper clipping and industry mention, he admitted when I questioned him. Just because I don't always understand the technical details doesn't mean I'm not paying attention. Later, as Allison and I helped clear the dishes, my mother pulled me aside. I owe you an apology, she said quietly. I think I've always focused more on Allison because she seemed to need the encouragement. You were always so capable, so self-sufficient. I never worried about you the way I worried about her. Mom, you don't have to. Yes, I do, she interrupted. Because in not worrying, I may have failed to celebrate you properly. That ends today. As we rejoined the family gathering, I noticed Allison deep in conversation with our cousin Mark, who ran a successful marketing agency. She caught my eye and gave me a thumbs up, another potential ally for her new business venture. In the 6 months that followed, life changed dramatically for both Mitchell sisters. I officially took the helm at Meridian Enterprises, implementing a strategic plan that emphasized sustainable growth and technological innovation. Under my leadership, the company's stock rose 15% in the first quarter, and we successfully acquired 2 smaller firms that strengthened our market position. Most satisfying of all was winning the Henderson account, a major client that Bradley had been pursuing for Thompson Financial. When Jonathan informed me that we were being considered alongside Thompson, I recused myself from the pitch process due to potential conflict of interest. Our team won anyway, on the strength of our superior risk management approach. Allison, meanwhile, launched Mitchell Events, starting small but quickly gaining clients through her extensive network and impeccable reputation. She specialized in charity galas and corporate functions that balanced elegance with social consciousness, events that made a statement while making a difference. To her surprise and mine, she discovered a talent for the business side of her venture. The same social intelligence that made her popular in school translated into an intuitive understanding of client needs and market trends. Within months, she had hired 2 assistants and was turning a modest profit. One evening in late autumn, as the first snow of the season dusted Boston, Allison and I met for dinner at a quiet neighborhood restaurant, a far cry from the opulent settings of Bradley's world, but warm and genuine in a way those places never were. I signed the lease today, Allison announced as we clinked glasses. Mitchell Events officially has an office space. That's wonderful, I exclaimed. The one in the South End you were considering? She nodded excitedly. It's perfect, central location, lots of natural light, and the building has a conference room I can use for client meetings. I'm so proud of you, Ollie. You've built something truly your own. I couldn't have done it without you, she replied. Your business advice, the startup loan, the client referrals. The business advice was free, the loan will be repaid with interest, and the clients contacted you because you're excellent at what you do, I countered. This success is yours. She smiled, acknowledging the truth in my words. Did I tell you Bradley called again last week? Thompson Financial is using a new event planner for their holiday party, and apparently, it's been a disaster. He wanted to know if I'd consider taking over. What did you say? I told him my company doesn't accept clients who refer to my sister as the help. She grinned mischievously. Then I recommended my biggest competitor, who charges twice my rates and is known for last-minute cancellations. I laughed. Remind me never to get on your bad side. As our dinner continued, we discussed plans for the upcoming holidays, our first since the dramatic changes in both our lives. We decided to buck family tradition and take a sisters-only vacation to a small beach town in Florida, away from Boston's winter and the memories of last year's engagement party. No business talk allowed, Allison insisted. Just sun, sand, and sisterly bonding. Deal, I agreed, already looking forward to the break. Leading Meridian was rewarding but exhausting, and I knew Allison was pouring similar energy into her fledgling company. As we walked out of the restaurant into the gently falling snow, Allison linked her arm through mine. You know what I realized recently? Bradley did us both a favor that night. How do you figure? He showed me who he really was before I made the biggest mistake of my life. And he helped us find our way back to being not just sisters, but friends. She squeezed my arm affectionately. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes. Looking at my sister, confident, independent, and genuinely happy, I couldn't help but agree. We had both found our paths, different but equally valid, and rediscovered each other in the process. To the Mitchell sisters, I said, catching a snowflake in my free hand. May we always recognize our own worth and each other's. And may we never settle for being just the help in our own stories, Allison added with a smile that held no trace of bitterness, only hard-won wisdom and peace. 6 months later, spring had returned to Boston, bringing with it the fresh energy of new beginnings. Meridian Enterprises had just completed its most successful quarter in company history under my leadership, exceeding projected earnings by 22%. The initial skepticism some board members had expressed about appointing a relatively young female CEO had been silenced by results they couldn't argue with. On this particular morning, I stood before a group of 30 young women in Meridian's main conference room. They were participants in our newly established mentorship program, college students, and recent graduates interested in financial services careers. Looking at their eager faces, I saw reflections of my younger self, determined, hopeful, and perhaps a little intimidated by the path ahead. The most important lesson I can share with you today, I told them, isn't about financial models or investment strategies. It's about recognizing your own value and refusing to let others define your worth. In this industry, you'll encounter people who will try to diminish you based on your gender, your background, or simply because your success threatens them. When that happens, and it will, remember that their limitations are not yours. One young woman raised her hand. Ms. Mitchell, did you ever doubt yourself? Even now as CEO, do you still face people who underestimate you? I smiled, thinking of a board meeting just last week where a senior member had expressed surprise at my detailed understanding of blockchain technology, as if my gender somehow made technical knowledge unexpected. Every day, I admitted. Self-doubt is part of the human experience, especially when you're charting unfamiliar territory. The key isn't eliminating doubt but preventing it from stopping you. As for being underestimated, I've learned to see that as an advantage. People who underestimate you rarely see you coming until you've already succeeded. After the session, as the participants networked with Meridian executives I'd invited to meet them, my assistant approached with a message. Your sister called. She asked if you're still available for lunch and said to tell you she has news. I checked my watch. Tell her I'll meet her as planned. And Rachel? Block off my calendar for Friday afternoon. I want to finish reviewing those mentorship applications myself. 30 minutes later, I was seated across from Allison at our favorite lunch spot, a small cafe midway between Meridian's headquarters and her new office space. In the months since launching Mitchell Events, Allison had blossomed. The nervous uncertainty that had characterized her post-Bradley period had been replaced by a quiet confidence that reminded me, somewhat surprisingly, of our mother. Sorry I'm late, I said, settling into my chair. The mentorship session ran long. No problem, Allison replied, pushing a menu toward me. How did it go? Wonderfully. These young women are so bright and motivated. Several of them have already asked about internship opportunities. Look at you, creating the female financial empire of the future, she teased. Speaking of empires, your assistant mentioned you have news? Allison's face lit up. Mitchell Events just landed the Children's Hospital annual benefit. It's their centerpiece fundraiser of the year, typically raises over $2 million. And guess who they fired to hire us? Not Bradley's firm. The very same event planning company Thompson Financial recommended after I turned them down. She couldn't contain her satisfied grin. Apparently, they charged a fortune and delivered mediocrity. The hospital board member who contacted me specifically mentioned hearing good things about our ethical business practices and client-centered approach. I raised my water glass in a toast. To karma and quality service. I'll drink to that, she laughed, clinking her glass against mine. But that's not actually my biggest news. There's more? Allison nodded, suddenly looking slightly nervous. I've been seeing someone. For about 2 months now. This was indeed news. Since ending her engagement, Allison had shown zero interest in dating, focusing entirely on building her business. Anyone I know? I asked carefully. Actually, yes. Mark Sullivan. I raised my eyebrows in surprise. Our cousin Mark's business partner? The marketing genius. She nodded. We met when I was consulting with Mark about my company branding. It started as professional conversations over coffee, then gradually became more. He's different, Steph. Thoughtful. Genuinely interested in my opinions. And completely supportive of my business. He'd better be, or he'll have me to deal with, I said, only half joking. I haven't told Mom and Dad yet, she admitted. After the whole Bradley disaster, I'm being much more cautious about introducing someone to the family. Wise decision, I agreed. Though I have a feeling Mark will be a significant upgrade. Anyone who's built a business from scratch like he is understands the value of hard work, something Bradley never grasped with his family connections and inherited privilege. Our conversation shifted to plans for our parents' upcoming 40th wedding anniversary. We decided to jointly host a celebration at my waterfront condo, combining Allison's event planning expertise with my spacious home. Mom's been dropping hints about grandchildren again, Allison mentioned as our food arrived. I think she's finally accepted neither of us is in a rush to the altar. Progress, I noted dryly. Though I suspect she'll transfer those expectations to you and Mark if things get serious. One step at a time, Allison replied. After Bradley, I'm in no hurry. The mention of Bradley prompted me to share some industry gossip I'd heard that morning. Apparently, Thompson Financial is struggling. They've lost several major clients in the past quarter, and there are rumors of internal discord. Jonathan mentioned that Bradley's position might be in jeopardy. Can't say I'm sorry to hear it, Allison admitted. Though I don't wish him personal hardship. Just appropriate consequences for his actions. That's more generous than he deserves, I said. But it speaks to your character. As our lunch continued, I marveled at how far we'd both come. The previous year's painful experiences had forged a deeper understanding between us, transforming our relationship from simply being sisters to becoming genuine friends and allies. Later that week, I invited my leadership team to my office for an important announcement. Jonathan Reynolds, still serving as chairman of the board, stood beside me as I addressed the group. As you know, Meridian has traditionally focused on domestic markets, I began. Today, I'm announcing our expansion into European financial services, beginning with the acquisition of Harrington and Associates in London. This strategic move positions us to better serve our multinational clients and access new growth opportunities. After outlining the specifics of the acquisition and answering questions, I noticed Jonathan watching me with unmistakable pride. You've exceeded even my high expectations, Stephanie, he said as the team filed out. The board couldn't be more pleased with Meridian's direction under your leadership. Thank you, Jonathan. That means a great deal coming from you. He paused, then added, I ran into Bradley Thompson at the Economic Club dinner last night. He asked about you. Did he? I kept my tone neutral, though I was curious. Yes. He's been demoted, you know. Back to senior account manager after losing the Henderson account. He seemed humbled. I considered this information. People rarely change fundamentally, Jonathan. They just adapt their strategies when the old ones stop working. He nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps. Though failure can be a powerful teacher for those willing to learn from it. He gathered his papers, preparing to leave. By the way, I've recommended you for the Financial Leadership Award. The ceremony is next month. That's unexpected, I said, genuinely surprised. The award was one of the most prestigious recognitions in our industry. Well-deserved, he corrected. And long overdue for a woman in this field. That evening, I arrived home to find a package outside my door, a beautifully wrapped gift with a card from Allison. Inside was a framed photograph of us as children, arms around each other on the beach, gap-toothed smiles beaming at the camera. The card read, "To remind you where we started and how far we've come. Love always, Ollie." The simple gesture brought unexpected tears to my eyes. For all my professional accomplishments, this renewed connection with my sister felt like the most significant achievement of the past year. The following Sunday, our family gathered at our parents' home for our traditional monthly dinner. As Allison had predicted, our mother was predictably charmed by Mark, who had accompanied her for the first time. Dad grilled him about his business model, while Mom plied him with second helpings of her famous pot roast. Both signs of parental approval in the Mitchell household. During a quiet moment on the porch swing after dinner, my mother joined me with 2 cups of coffee. "I'm proud of you, Stephanie," she said simply. "Not just for your career success, but for how you supported your sister through everything with Bradley. That's what family is about." I've learned a lot this year, I admitted. About success, about relationships, about what really matters. She nodded, sipping her coffee. The most important lesson in life is learning to recognize your own worth and to surround yourself with people who recognize it too. Sounds like something I said to my mentorship group the other day. I smiled. "Where do you think you got your wisdom?" She winked. "Certainly not from your father's side of the family." We laughed together, and in that moment, I felt a circle completing. The wisdom of mothers passing to daughters, sisters supporting sisters, women recognizing their own strength and value in a world that often tried to diminish it. Later, as Allison and I helped with dishes, some family traditions never changed. She nudged me playfully. "So, CEO Mitchell, what's next on your conquest list? Global financial domination? Running for Senate? NASA's first banker on Mars?" I laughed. "Right now, I'm focusing on being present for what I have, not just planning for what's next." "That's something I've learned from you, actually." She looked surprised. "From me?" "Your ability to connect with people, to be fully present in relationships, that's a gift, Ollie. One I'm still learning to develop." She smiled, clearly touched. "Well, if we're exchanging compliments, I've learned persistence from you. The determination to keep going even when things get tough." "The Mitchell sisters' superpowers," I said. "Presence and persistence. Unstoppable combination," she agreed. As spring turned to summer, both our professional and personal lives continued to flourish. Meridian's European expansion proceeded smoothly, while Mitchell Events hired 2 more staff members to handle increasing demand. Allison's relationship with Mark deepened, though they were taking things slowly, a pace that suited them both after her experience with Bradley. I channeled more of my energy into the mentorship program, working directly with several promising young women. Teaching them to navigate the often challenging landscape of financial services helped me appreciate how far I'd come and recognize the responsibility I now had to create change from within. In July, Allison and I finally took that sisters-only vacation we'd promised ourselves, spending a week at a quiet beach house in Florida. Away from Boston's financial district and event planning circuit, we reconnected as simply Stephanie and Allison, not CEO and entrepreneur, not the brainy sister and the social sister, just 2 women who shared history, blood, and a deeper understanding of each other than anyone else could claim. On our last evening, sitting on the beach watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, Allison asked a question that caught me off guard. "Are you happy, Steph? Truly happy?" I considered the question carefully. "Yes," I answered finally. Not in the simplistic way I might have defined happiness before. It's more complex now: satisfaction in my work, meaningful connections with people I care about, the knowledge that I'm making a difference. It's not perfect, but it's authentic. That's what I thought, she nodded, looking satisfied. You seem more yourself now. Less guarded. And you? I asked. Are you happy? I am, she said with quiet certainty. I'm building something that matters to me on my terms. And I've stopped trying to be what others expect. That's freedom. We sat in comfortable silence as the sun slipped below the horizon, painting the message across the sky that some endings make way for even more beautiful beginnings. 6 months after Bradley had dismissively called me just the help, both Mitchell's sisters had discovered something profound. When you refuse to let others define your worth, you free yourself to create a life that truly reflects your values and honors your unique strengths. The journey hadn't been easy, but the destination, this moment of authentic peace and purpose, was worth every difficult step along the way. Have you ever been underestimated only to prove someone wrong? Or perhaps you've had a relationship that seemed perfect until you saw someone's true colors. I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more real-life experiences, and share with someone who might need to be reminded of their worth today. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, those who underestimate you don't determine your value, you do.